So welcome everyone to the final event of today. Before we begin, I'd just like to thank all of our panelists for joining us and for sharing your insight for this presentation. So today we'll be continuing the conversation of the previous presentations and dive a little bit deeper and explore how students can engage with other disciplines and industries to learn the needed skills required to work in a rapidly digitizing industry. We'll also extend that topic to the current professionals looking to adopt skills from other sectors and advance their skills as well. To go through introductions, panelists will be introducing themselves. So Craig, how about we start with you?
Brilliant, thanks. My name is Craig Howie. I'm the Digital Project Delivery Lead at AECOM in South Africa. I'm based in the Durban office, which is on the east coast of South Africa, and I manage a team of BIM managers and BIM coordinators here. In South Africa, we do work up into Africa and also quite a lot of work at the moment internationally.
Great. Lara, how about you?
Thanks, Kirk, and thanks for having me here today. Good morning, everyone. I'm Lara Chow. I'm the Associate Director of the Carleton Immersive Media Studio, which is a research center at the Carleton University campus here in Ottawa, Canada. And I've also led several teams in developing as found BIM or Heritage BIM for the Centre Block Rehabilitation Project, Library of Parliament, and several other significant heritage buildings in Ottawa.
Great, thanks, Lara. And Nicholas?
Yeah, thank you, Kirk. My name is Nicholas Owuor. I'm an architect and a BIM consultant in Kenya, based in Nairobi in Kenya. And basically what I do is help companies set up their BIM systems and get their staff trained to understand how to implement BIM systems both internally and externally to maximize the software that they use to actually get the whole process moving quite well.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yes.
All right, so let's just jump right into it. So I'd like to begin with students. So today we learned there are some programs and training available for BIM, but students outside of these specific courses are not getting enough information on the role technology plays in our industry. What are some of the challenges faced by providing BIM and digital technologies as a standard for education, and what are some possible solutions?
So maybe I can go ahead and answer part of that. I think coming from kind of an academic point of view, one of the challenges specifically for, I guess, universities here in Canada is just accreditation. So some of the programs don't necessarily allow for that kind of multidisciplinary training that you can get from learning of these new technologies. So a lot of the, I guess, programs won't allow a number of courses to be taught by people outside of that discipline. So that's one of the biggest challenges in kind of getting that multidisciplinary work and research in. And I think too, there's also this kind of lingering prejudice, maybe we could say, in academia between, the sciences, engineers, architects, the arts, humanities, where, there's this kind of, I guess, almost language barrier in the way that we talk about things, or even the way that we think about things. It's a very specific way of thinking. And I think that that's kind of one of the challenges, is just getting over that barrier. So a solution that perhaps, thinking about it is introducing kind of multidisciplinary senior projects. And then maybe from that, it might become more apparent as to the benefits of these multidisciplinary trainings. And then you can actually advocate it for becoming more multidisciplinary courses in academia. So that's kind of one of the issues with students right now.
Yeah, maybe building upon that, it is something that we also facing in this region of ours. A lot of the courses taught in the university are very siloed, so it becomes quite an issue trying to get non-related non-related courses to be able to work together, because there's usually no standard between them. So getting that to be able to work is usually a challenge. So maybe for me, the thing to look at would be trying to find a way of finding an overarching maybe common unit or something that can touch on a number of related of related of related courses without actually having to get that course linked to another one directly. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
so in South Africa, we definitely have quite a lot of challenges with the way that building information modeling and technologies are taught at a lot of our institutions. You're still seeing that a lot of where there are courses, they're a little bit thin on their quality, and then there's also just some institutes that are not really providing much content to students. Then that's definitely the nature of things in South Africa at the moment. If people want to really do detailed courses, they're having to do stuff through correspondence to international courses. When I was at university, which was a couple of years back now, we used to have a particular exercise. I think it was in fourth year of architecture. It was called SOP, or Simulated Office Practice. And the whole idea behind it was you actually had to deliver a project with an engineer and an architect, maybe a structural engineer and an MEP engineer, and actually come together and do a group project. And just before I finished university, that particular exercise fell away. I assume it was because it was too difficult to get courses lined up between the different departments, or whatever the case may be. But that was a real pity, and I can't imagine these days that that simulated office practice type exercises is being done in South African offices. Definitely, we're not seeing the students coming out of university with that with any sort of multidisciplinary exposure. At least that's what I pick up from the students that come work for us. What I think the solution or the opportunity is obviously we need to get around the politics of and the logistics of why we're unable to line different departments up in different disciplines. But I really believe that technology is an enabler for that to happen. We're often many times these days working in software that's interoperable with other software. I think it's really an exciting space to be in at the moment, that we can actually, when we did the simulated office practice exercise a few years back, or we're meant to have done it, we didn't have the technology back then. It was like you had the option of AutoCAD or AutoCAD. You didn't really have the options of some of the exciting software these days. Sorry, getting the mood right, are we? So yeah,
You have your own
just
theme
to
music.
finish off with that, I really think that we need these types of programs to come back into our institutes, this sort of simulated office practice, because then we're going to really get students coming out with a slightly broader idea of what it is that they're actually going to do to earn a wage one day.
Yeah, Craig, I completely agree with you. The simulated office practice just seems, having that kind of applied project for people to work together, I think is the best way to kind of teach multidisciplinary work. But it's interesting that, it's with technology advancing so quickly, for them to have canceled that, and it was just engineers and architects. And now when you think about some of the different disciplines that you almost need in an office, you're going into computer science, you're going into interactive media design. It's not just engineers. So it'd be even more interesting now to see those kind of disciplines be brought into the simulated office practice too.
Yeah, that's a really good point, right? Pretty much every industry almost a tech industry now, right? Like
Mhm.
you mentioned it too, Craig, bringing all these technologies in and enabling these collaborations, but we're not really executing and teaching that collaboration. Yes, that's definitely something that needs to be addressed. At Algonquin College, we have our BIM lifecycle management program, and what we try and do is meet with other programs and try and find an assignment that can be complementary to both, and kind of just teach each other. So we're not really like taking the students out of our program and putting them in another one. We're just kind of bringing two programs together and giving them an assignment that they each have to do their own part on related to their programs, what they're learning from each other. So we found that's a pretty good middle ground. It takes a lot of passion and effort from both faculties to get that organized, definitely. But I see another opportunity for this being in research. And Lara, maybe that's something you can expand on, the work you do at SIMS.
Yeah, so for those of you who aren't kind of familiar with SIMS and who we are, essentially we're a research lab at Carleton University, and we started out with about a handful of students who were 50% architects, 50% engineers, and that was back in 2007. And I think just through all the different research projects that we've had, either through our own directed research or partners and industry partners coming to us and asking us to solve problems, we've really had to kind of expand the disciplines of the students that join our lab. So right now we're about 85 students coming from all different types of backgrounds. So we have people from computer science, we have people from interactive multimedia and design. So they have backgrounds in things like game engines and animations, modeling beyond, buildings and urban areas, but also modeling like people and things like that. We have people from history to help us write some of our narratives for some of these stories that we write about buildings. And, just kind of computer scientists who are helping us with different types of machine learning. So for instance, looking at segmenting and manually assigning classifications to point clouds. So it's a very diverse group of students, and you kind of need that when you have industry partners coming to you and saying, hey, can you teach a machine to automatically segment and classify point clouds? As architects, we don't necessarily have that training. So it's been a really great environment in terms of, innovating and pushing things forward, because you do really need these other disciplines to kind of work on these projects. And I think it's been most interesting because now one of the grants that we're putting together is to really focus on multidisciplinary research. So in Canada, we can get funding from the Tri-Councils. It's federally funded grants. And I think even they're working towards multidisciplinary research. So a lot of the times, each specific Tri-Council won't fund multidisciplinary research, but they've put together this new funding program that is specifically meant for multidisciplinary research called New Frontiers, which is one way to kind of fund these multidisciplinary research programs. But the one that we're looking at SIMS is actually putting together students from computer science, architecture, engineering, and IMD to basically train in these other disciplines. And then we'll partner with industry partners from not only Canada, but around the world to essentially address any sort of technological issues that our industry partners have. So they'll essentially get a team of students that work with them on this project and research question that they can then learn from the students, whatever they're attempting to research. So that's something that we're trying to do at SIMS to kind of challenge this multidisciplinary divide.
That's great. And I find it really interesting that you're working with partners all around the world. Maybe there's some opportunities that might come out of this if anyone's looking to do research with them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're always looking for partners, and when we put the grant together, if any, I can always put my email in the chat here, and we can discuss different partnerships. And the way it'd work is essentially students, would either travel to you, or you'd send us a research question, and we'd be able to work on it here at the lab.
That's great. Thanks. So Nicholas, in your part of the world,
Yes.
how do you see bringing BIM and these technologies directly into what students are learning in architecture or engineering or construction management? How do you see solving that problem?
Okay, for me, the first issue is actually getting the students themselves to fully understand what BIM is and what it can be, what opportunities it opens up for them just within the AEC industry first. Then once that is done, it's now trying to get them to understand how a whole pipeline can work. By a pipeline, I mean how the production process can all go through. Because now, like bringing in people who do computer programming to help with generative design and all that, now opens up opportunities. But if the primary people don't understand why they need the other disciplines, it now becomes a challenge. So the opportunity that is there right now is actually broadening up the minds of the students in various faculties to be able to understand this is what BIM is, this is what it can do for me. Then opening it up to other faculties like computer science, as it was mentioned, who also deal with programming and that, and then they can see how they can fit in. So the future is quite bright. It's just that it's a new thing that is emerging within this region of ours, and a lot of information and training needs to go into it to get people to understand first what it's helping them with, then see how to incorporate others. Yes, because if you don't understand what it is, it becomes difficult trying to ask someone else, come and work with me, when you don't even know what you are doing. Yeah, so that for me is the opening that there is at the moment. It's just getting people to understand what it is and then seeing how to bring others in to fill in the gaps that might be missing on the AEC side.
Right. Yeah, we had that, still have that challenge in Canada as well, is
Yes.
trying to spread the word and let everyone know that this is a good thing. And there's a lot of benefits to it. I think we've done a pretty good job, especially having CanBIM and Building Smart Canada being such major advocates. That's been really helpful in educating not only students but professionals as well. And I see what BIM Africa is doing. They're trying to tackle a lot of the same problems, and I think that's a really good. That'll be really helpful, and it's a great way to move forward in developing BIM education.
Yes.
Okay, so let's shift a little bit into the professional realm. It's going to be kind of the same question. How do we train professionals and help them understand that these other technologies, such as programming, manufacturing, all these other industries, are kind of being more and more embedded in our own industry? Right, we're very ripe for disruption. I think it's just a matter of time before tech comes in and starts just doing it for us, kind of. So how do we make sure that people in the industry now are able to adapt to that change and adopt these new technologies?
What personally I've done is whenever I'm doing training or talking to a new firm, is to, many of them ask me, why do I need to do it, and yet there's no one else doing it? And I usually tell them it's better to be ahead than when now you really need to do it, is when now you start looking for the training and all that, because a number of people see the value in it, but they see that I'll be blazing the trail alone. There's no one else who is coming with me. So why do I need to change my method of working when I'm the only one who's going to be doing that? And trying to explain to them that, yes, maybe the people you're working with right now don't understand it, but in a few years' time, the people who are coming into the market will be ready for that technology, and then you're the one who will be playing catch up, and it will be a very odd position for you. So what I just tell them is, if you have the interest and you have the means to do it, just go into it. Adapt your systems, adapt your way of working into that, and then let others play catch up, because it's easier to send someone a 2D drawing other than it's easier to send a 2D drawing from your 3D model that you've done in BIM than the other way around, that you have to give someone who is working in BIM 2D drawings. So I say it's not going to reduce you in any way by you blazing the trail. Sorry, yes, that's the way I usually put it.
Yeah, that's very well said. Yeah, that's something I see a lot, is just the resistance to change and not understanding like the need for it, which is fair, right? Like if you've been working this way and it works, you really need to change. But I think if we look at like healthcare, manufacturing, just the amount of disruption that technology has played, I'm a little surprised it's taken so long to come to our industry, to be honest.
Yeah, I think too, building on what Nicholas was saying earlier, is just educating people. And I think that, virtual sessions like this are so great to kind of showcase the different types of technologies that are out there and what people are using. And another way that I think, professionals can become more knowledgeable about new technologies is through different continuing education opportunities, or as Vitor was talking about earlier, just educating yourself through things like YouTube or any of those free kind of different training opportunities. Like for instance, SIMS is now collaborating with the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada to provide continuing education courses on developing a BIM from point cloud, and just like digitization practices. And so while you're fulfilling your requirements, you can also kind of learn about new technologies. So I think that's one way professionals can kind of stay in the loop with new and upcoming technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's so many resources online now, which is great. It helps make it very accessible. You don't get, I guess, the same level of interaction with a professor or something as you would in an in-person class, but I think for professionals, really, they already understand how the industry works. They just need to learn how to apply these new tools.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think yeah, all these LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, they're all great resources. Yeah,
but I think like one of the things that may be lacking on our end is having a strong professional body, like how you have CanBIM, pushing it also, because you see professionals now coming together under a specific body can also give them that opportunity to get to understand what it is that they need to adapt and how it's going to help them. Because sometimes when you're small individual companies trying to push it, it now looks like you're trying to create a niche market, which is now only yours. And some people have a lot of pushback on that. But if it's a national body, then that becomes a bit more of it makes it a bit easier for adaptation. It might not be as fast, but it makes it slightly easier for adaptation. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it adds a level of authority.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, it's a good point about the niche market. Like that's not what this is. This is just how things are now.
But presenting it to someone who does not understand it, it looks like you're trying to sell them something that is so niche. Why isn't anyone else using it? Why are you telling me that I have to use it? Now that's where someone starts feeling, I really don't need to adapt this because no one else is doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think you touched on it a little bit, but can you elaborate on how you deal with that change management, and just helping people understand and accept this?
Change management, the way I usually deal with it is like if I'm trying to do a training for a farm or anything, it's getting the principles of the farm involved. Because many a time people tend to look at it like you're coming to train the software. And as the principal of the farm, sometimes they don't do any more drawings. So they say, you train my staff on how to use it, then then I'll get involved later. But usually what happens is when it comes to crunch time, that there's not too much time to deliver, they make everyone revert to the old way of working, because that one he was sure the delivery would come out on time. But now trying to explain to someone that this is not a one-time thing, like the training might go for two weeks, but it takes time for you, first of all, for you to adapt your systems to the new way of working. So someone trying to explain to someone that it might take you 1 to 1.5 years of continuously working at it for your farm now to fully adapt it is where now people really don't get to understand, because they think it's a quick fix. Yes, and they're not seeing what, I mean, first of all, they're not seeing what you're trying to fix. Yes, so that's, and then why would it take so long to fix something that's already working? So change management is trying to get someone to see the value. So what I usually try to do is create a virtual project that is working on all the stages, and now take them through it and show them this is where this would go wrong for you, this is how this thing is solved, this is where this would go wrong for you, this is how you solve it. So eventually they begin seeing there is actually value in adopting this process other than just the old way of doing things.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, like one of the things that kind of kickstarted things in Canada was clients beginning to request for BIM deliverables on projects.
Yes.
Is that something that's happening yet in Kenya?
Not yet, because the way a lot of projects are driven here, it is architect based. So the clients really depend a lot on the architect. So that is actually why my first point has been is to get the architect to understand what it is, because now they can recommend to the client why they need to adopt this. But if you go to a client who first of all does not understand fully the whole process of construction, then you tell him ask for these specific things. Then now when the consultants ask him why do you need these specific things and he can't answer, then now that becomes now an issue of, yes. So it's, for them it's easier to say, okay, I've gone to the architect and I've told them this is the project I want. Now it's for the architect to come and now recommend. Now the thing that has been a bit of a push is international type projects where the client is not locally based. Now they come in with their now requirements, and now that pushes the consultants to actually now say, okay, we need to adopt this. So locally, it may not be too many clients who understand what it is, but the push when now someone wants to work with an international company is now when that comes in, that these are the deliverables that we need, and you have to be able to deliver. So if you want the job, you have to get to understand. And that's what I was saying, that I tell someone that don't wait for that day when you get that job and you're told now you have to deliver and start looking for ways to deliver. Just do it now when you're not under a lot of pressure. Then when it comes, you already have set up your systems, it's working already. So that's the way I put it. But to answer your question, a lot of clients are not very well, they don't really understand what the requirements are or what BIM can do for them. Yes. So it's a multi-pronged approach of talking to some of the clients, talking to private developers, talking to the consultants, so everyone gets to understand how this makes the whole process much easier for everybody.
Lara, I know you've done work with some pretty large clients in Ottawa who like own and operate infrastructure. Could you maybe just provide some examples of how you've helped them along in this process and understanding?
Yeah, for sure. So one of our biggest clients and kind of what we're most known for is our work on Parliament Hill. So working with PSPC, we actually started working with them in 2013. And we kind of specialize in heritage building information models. And at the time, not a lot of people were using them for existing conditions modeling. And so we said to them, we'll model the West Block strictly just as a research project. There wasn't really any deliverables or anything like that, but just to show them kind of the benefits of developing an existing conditions BIM. So we built it for them and they saw the benefits, and then they kind of mandated that throughout the rest of their projects. So for the Center Block rehabilitation project, they approached us a few years before the rehabilitation team came on and asked us to develop the as-found BIM. So taking the point cloud data, developing that into a model, and then we've now handed that off to the rehabilitation team, and it's been fairly useful. I know that like Vitor is actually working on that project as well, and he's talking a little bit about it. So I think a lot of our initial clients at the beginning needed a little bit of convincing in terms of just the benefits to heritage BIM or HBIM. But now I think it's just going that way. All of the projects that we've been asked to come on now require BIM. So it's great to see that.
Yeah, you just need a few wins to show us.
Exactly.
Yeah. Craig, I'd like to hear your perspective from South Africa. Are there a lot of clients there that are requiring BIM on projects, or is it more of a consultant or constructor-led effort?
Okay, so let's see how this goes. I'm having South African internet issues. So yes, definitely certain types of clients. So we're very fortunate in that we deliver a lot of work for international clients in South Africa and into Africa. The likes of Daimler, the likes of Heineken, the likes of Amazon or AWS. You know, they're bringing international trends down to Africa, and we're having to deliver to those standards, which is really great. If you look at the public sector in South Africa, it's only ever really, building information modeling is only really done by a couple of consultants on sporadic projects to really try and increase the coordination on the projects and collaboration on the projects. You still got a lot of people delivering just 2D outputs and that sort of thing. I'm exposed to quite a lot of Middle East work at the moment, which is quite exciting for us. What we're seeing in that particular region is a lot of RFPs are coming out with very onerous BIM requirements, which is really great because then, we're continually getting challenged by our clients and learning from these sort of international clients, and then being able to bring that back to African clients and apply it in our own way down here in South Africa. So yeah, it's definitely a mixed bag.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. All right, so we have a couple questions from the audience. So once again, if you have any questions for the panel, we have a little bit of time to go through them. So just post them in the Q&A section. So here's one. If you had to choose one digital software other than Revit for students to learn, what would it be? That's a tough one.
Maybe I could answer that. Now, it depends on where you are. In this region of ours, and also I think it depends on what you're actually doing. If you're now going to be doing BIM authoring, if you're doing BIM authoring and you're doing it as an architect, maybe in this region of ours, Kenya and East Africa, it's usually the Revit or Graphisoft ArchiCAD. Now, for the other structural design, it's either Revit or Tekla structures. So that would be my answer. Now, dependent on that. I'm not very sure about the MEP side because MEP usually they just use Revit and a lot of AutoCAD.
Mm-hmm.
I guess this isn't going to answer the question specifically. I mean, just looking at the amount of different tools and software that we use in our office, like you really need to almost be a Renaissance man in the sense that you kind of know a little bit of everything. So I guess it really depends on the project. Like I think if you have a multidisciplinary team, you should have, someone on your team that would know specific software that would be required for a specific research question. But there's different game engines, coding, even things about digitization and understanding, putting together survey points and registering a point cloud, which could come in handy. So different things like that. But I guess I can't really pick one specifically.
Okay.
Oh, wow, that's quite a it's quite a tough question, really, because there are just so many different types of software available to us. Authoring software is just one of many that we're having to use day to day. So my suggestion was really pick something that you're quite passionate about and that you can really specialize in it, and that something that you're specializing in and passionate about, you can possibly use as a specialization when you move into a practice one day. I do generally look at people's CVs that come to us, and I hate it when people have too much on their CV, because then it's that they're really trying too hard. But if you just have a few things, so don't come to me and tell me you know ArchiCAD and Tekla and Revit and you know everything. You're an expert. Don't do that. Specialize in something. Be passionate about it. You get that onto your CV, and then when you go to a company to look for a job or something like that, show that passion in your interview, and explain why you are passionate in that particular topic and how that could be valuable to the company you're wanting to work for.
Yeah, very well said. I think I'd just like to add that, just adding on to that specialization you were mentioning, whatever tools you learn to use, try and understand them as well as you can. But almost just as importantly, understand how they work with other tools. I think the fact that this question is so hard to answer just highlights the importance of understanding how different tools work together. Because every project is going to have different requirements. You might need different software on each of them. So understanding that interoperability, to me, is very important. Okay, got a bunch of questions coming in. That's great. Can you name some projects where BIM is used in Kenya or Africa in general?
The one I know that it has been used in some form, because there are not that many that have come out. There's a factory by Wrigley's. I don't know if you know Wrigley's, the company. They make chewing gum.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So they were doing a factory here that one of their requirements was the use of BIM, but quite a number of other projects use some small aspect of it, not like for the deliverables. So they are not like set out employer information requirements and such things. So they use it in some aspects or other. So there are quite a number of big projects that have come up that might use it in some way or other. But usually the way I've seen it, because as a firm like I support in Rwanda, what they use it for is mainly for site information. So it helps the contractor understand what is actually being built. So you're using the model to help him see what he's actually going to build, and that makes it easier for him. Yeah. So that's usually the challenge is that the consultants might have the software, but the contractors don't have the software. So what usually happens is you as the consultant have to help the contractor on site to be able to understand what you require of him to deliver. So that's, for me, I'd say, since it's an emerging thing, and also that thing of changing it from 2D to now 3D models, first of all, the consultants don't really fully understand what it is. And since now they've got it, yeah, you have to introduce it in parts that we're going to use only this BIM requirement. So it's not, I don't think there's one which has fully gone all the way that I know of. Yeah. But I know various aspects of BIM get used in projects. And mainly it is usually for first of all, for presentations. Yes. and then also for helping the contractor understand what he's doing on site. But as for the life cycle, usually this whole process stops when you do the handover. So usually now facilities management is now a whole other thing that starts. Yeah. So now getting someone to understand that BIM goes through that whole process until facilities management is also a new. It's also a new area that is coming in, because most times people know once we've done handover and the client has signed off, then now it's up to him how he's going to run his building. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it is
Yeah.
not it's not the full BIM use, but just picking a few BIM users to help the whole process.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty similar to what we see in Canada. There are definitely some projects now where it goes through that whole life cycle. But I'm always like a little, I guess maybe heartbroken. Might not be the right word, but when you put all this work and there's so much information embedded in these models, and then they're not being used for life cycle, right? Which is really like we design and build it. That's like 1% of the building's life, right?
Yes.
There's that whole other portion of it that this data can be very valuable, and it's not really being leveraged yet to the fullest extent. Okay, here's a good question. What are some of the obstacles for cross-discipline collaboration on an international level?
So, so some people just don't like to collaborate. Some people, some people like to do their own thing, aren't necessarily team players. And I think you see that on small projects, and then you see it amplified on big projects. I think we do now these days have significantly better tools than we had 5 years ago or 10 years ago for doing international collaboration. Microsoft Teams is getting used heavily. A lot of I spend my days on Microsoft Teams. It's very interactive. It really helps with that sort of, collaboration and understanding where people are at, that you can't just get on a plane and fly to see those people. And then a lot of the software that we use day to day also it's become very cloud-centric, very easy to use from anywhere. And that's really helping with some of the challenges on those international projects.
Great. Yeah, cloud computing has been a huge game changer. We use it at NORR on quite a few projects as well, and just being able to work in other consultants' models who are halfway around the world working live together, it's like a whole other level of collaboration. So that's been fantastic. Lara, do you have any input on that for your partners with international countries for research?
Yeah, I mean, coming from like an academic perspective, funding is always a huge obstacle and challenge, is to actually get funding. So it means, finding the right funding agency, submitting a really exciting grant that they want to fund, and then finding the right partners internationally who want to jump on board with you. So I think that's kind of one of the biggest challenges, is just, making a network that's aware of what you're trying to do and having them come on board. Because I think a lot of other countries don't get the same type of funding that we can get for research. So they're not very aware of these different types of partnerships. So events like this are great to kind of talk about that and then have people reach out and kind of form those relationships. Because, for instance, the next question, just talking about partnerships with other African countries, SIMS doesn't have any existing partnerships beyond, working with the Getty, and we do a lot of heritage conservation and recording in different projects across Africa. But, new upcoming projects would be great to kind of span the network of our research network.
Great, thanks. I think we have time just for one more question. Curious to know, what does an employer look for from a new graduate? Where's the current market in terms of hiring processes?
Sure. So let me take that one to start. So, we're obviously looking at what type of person the applicant is. First and foremost, does it look like somebody that's going to be a hard worker? Maybe they don't necessarily have as yet all the technical skills that we're wanting or the experience, but what sort of demeanor does the person have? And if you can get a good positive vibe across in an interview, to me that's a lot better than your CV and what it says and how many different technologies and that sort of thing that you know. Definitely at AECOM, we do look at, we have certain tools that we are part of our preferred technology stack. So, that does come into play. We don't necessarily always want to hire every person into the business and have to upskill them from nothing to get them working on our projects. So, it really is good to see again the attitude of the person. Have they really gone out and learned some of the tools that we would want them to maybe have skills, and have they actually gone out in their own time, and their own put in their own effort to extend themselves beyond maybe just what they're trained at an institute or a university that they attend. And then we're sort of looking for some random things in CVs as well, that makes you sort of stick out. And I know you guys were talking about the ability to program and that sort of thing. A little bit earlier, I was picking up mixed audio on it, but at the moment, like, I'm really keen if I see a young engineer come into our business. Okay, it's great that he knows Revit and he knows Tickler and he knows these things, but if somebody comes in and he's got a bit of programming enthusiasm and a bit of skill already there, that is, to me, is quite valuable. And it doesn't necessarily need to be something like programming, but just alternative things that, again, back to that point about specializations, we can go out and hire a lot of people with AutoCAD skills, and we can go out and hire a lot of people with Revit and Navisworks skills. But if you come in with that slightly unique element, that often makes your CV stick out.
Great, thanks. Nicholas, did you have anything to add
No,
there?
just for what I'd say to that is maybe for me looking at something called teachability and adaptability. Because many a time you might come with the right CV or the right looking CV, but when you put down to start working, you cannot work, or you are trying to tell someone this is the procedure we follow in this office, and you're coming in with your mindset that this is how it should be done. Now that creates friction, and the thing I mentioned earlier on called pipelining. I mean, this is how work should come out, and this is how it comes out effectively. Now, if you're one part of it causing the whole process to stop, however good your CV is, it really doesn't matter, because now you're stopping the whole office, even if you are very good at what you need to do. So it's just that issue of being sure that yes, I can be taught, and I'm willing to be taught, because I do not know everything. First of all, if you're a fresh graduate, there's a lot that is it's quite different what you are doing in campus and what is actually happening in real life. So if you feel that you already had a mindset that this height should be done, it now becomes a difficult issue actually getting you to be trained into that. And then also understanding that there's a lot of adaptability that goes into it, so that should technologies change and the company needs to shift, you now don't start saying that I only know this, and this is the only thing that I can do, and I cannot add any other skill to myself. So it's that issue of yes, you need to be adaptable to whatever is happening. And I also tell people that if you know something, no one can remove it from your head if you leave the company. So that if you learned it there, that if you leave the company, they take it out of your head and you have to go and start again. So it does not hurt you in any way learning something new. Yeah, that's what I say.
Thanks, well said. Lara, did you want to add any last words to that?
No, I completely agree with everything that Craig and Nicholas said. I mean, when we hire at Sims, always looking for, would they be a good fit in the office in terms of, Craig said, the vibe, personality wise. But then also asking them questions like, how comfortable are you learning new software, which is something that, we're continuously doing. So that adaptability and, teachability is definitely very important too. So.
Wonderful. All right. Well, that concludes our panel discussion. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today and providing your insight. It was great. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. So just a couple closing notes. Thank you everyone for joining us today. So happy to have you. Thank you to our other speakers as well, Vitor and Usman, for sharing your experiences with us. These sessions were recorded and will be available on CanBIM's website, canbim.com. While you're there, check out some upcoming events on the events page and feel free to explore becoming a CanBIM member. I'd like to once again thank CanBIM and their sponsors, including their platinum sponsors, Autodesk Construction Cloud, Building Point Canada, and SolidCAD for hosting today's event. I'd also like to thank BIM Africa for partnering with us and helping build this event from the ground up. To learn more about BIM Africa and their upcoming events and membership, check out bimafrica.org. Thank you to the Digital Build NCR team for all of your hard work as well. If you are in the Canadian National Capital Region and are interested in the work we do, please check us out at dvncr.ca. I'd also like to thank our event partners, BGIS, Ellis Don, NORR, and Prospect BIM Firm. And finally, I'd like to thank today's planning team. Moses Itanola, Lot Kaduma, Abubakar Lawal from BIM Africa, Usman Olayemi from Prospect BIM Firm, Megan Benj from Algonquin College, Jean-Pierre Begat from BGIS, Patrick Lalonde from Ellis Don, and Jerry Latman and Sergey Brishko from CanBIM. Thank you all very much for your hard work. Thank you all, everyone who came to today's event. Appreciate it very much. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.